Mr. Hill, what has television given you?
Well, nervous dyspepsia, indigestion, heartburn, all sorts of things like that, you know.
For decades, The Benny Hill Show was a television institution, captivating viewers with its breathless slapstick routines, cheeky innuendo, and that instantly recognizable bouncy theme tune. Benny Hill himself became one of Britain's most famous comedians, his cheeky smile and frantic chases adored by millions across the world. Yet beneath the constant laughter and classic sketches, a storm was gathering. A single controversial segment would ignite fierce criticism, accelerate shifting attitudes toward comedy, and play a major role in bringing the long-running series to an abrupt end. What started as lighthearted entertainment suddenly found itself at the center of a cultural debate that exposed changing social values and eventually led to the program's cancellation in 1989. Today, we look back at the moment that changed everything and examine the hidden tensions that finally toppled one of television's most beloved comedy giants. From its debut in 1955 until it was pulled from the airwaves 34 years later, The Benny Hill Show brought laughter to countless homes around the globe. Although the program had always flirted with risqué material, one sketch broadcast toward the end of the 1980s crossed a line for a growing number of viewers and critics. The segment in question was a spoof beauty contest in which barely dressed female contestants were leered at and reduced to objects of crude jokes. At a time when public attitudes toward gender portrayal and sexual humor were rapidly evolving, what had once been dismissed as harmless fun now struck many as crass and deeply outdated. This single moment crystallized years of simmering unease and thrust the show into a firestorm of controversy. To understand how a program loved by so many could fall so dramatically, we first need to look at the man who created it. Alfred Hawthorne Hill, known to the world as Benny, was born on January 21, 1924 in Southampton, England, though some records list 1925. His family tree contained a surprising show business branch. His grandfather had worked as a circus clown, while his father ran a shop selling surgical appliances. Young Benny attended local schools, but showed no immediate signs of heading for the stage. Instead, he drifted through an assortment of ordinary jobs: shop assistant at Woolworths, milkman, bridge operator, delivery driver, even drummer in a small band. These varied experiences would later feed directly into the everyman characters he portrayed so convincingly. In 1942, with World War II raging, Hill was conscripted into the British Army. Trained initially as a mechanic in the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers, he later drove trucks, operated searchlights after D-Day, and eventually transferred to the Army's Entertainment Division. Performing for troops across Europe gave him invaluable stage experience and sharpened the comic timing that would define his career. When the war ended, Hill emerged determined to follow in the footsteps of the great music hall comedians he had idolized as a boy. He adopted the stage name Benny in homage to the American comic Jack Benny and began chasing whatever opportunities came his way. His first real break arrived on radio in 1947, with an appearance on the popular program Variety Bandbox. Listeners quickly warmed to his quick wit and versatile voices, and within a few years he had crossed over to the new medium of television. Early TV appearances allowed him to add sight gags and physical comedy to his arsenal, elements that would become central to his style. Throughout the 1950s and early 1960s, he honed his craft on BBC variety shows, short-lived sitcoms, and even a respected television production of Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, in which he played the comic role of Bottom opposite a cast of classical heavyweights. On January 15, 1955, the BBC launched The Benny Hill Show proper, a program that drew heavily on music hall traditions while embracing the possibilities of television, combining film sketches with musical numbers and rapid-fire visual jokes. It quickly found a loyal audience. Hill wrote, most of the material himself, supported by a talented repertory. Company that included Patricia Hayes, Jeremy Hawke, and most memorably the tiny, bald-headed Jackie Wright, forever immortalized as the frequent recipient of Hill's playful head pats. After brief flirtations with commercial networks, the show settled at Thames Television in 1969. The move proved transformative. Instead of weekly episodes, Thames aired occasional one-hour specials, giving Hill greater scope for elaborate production and more ambitious comedy. International sales soared. At its peak, the program was seen in more than 140 countries. The famous accelerated chase sequences, usually ending each special, became a global trademark, accompanied by Boots Randolph's infectious yakety sax, a tune now inseparable from Hill's name. The 1970s represented the show's commercial and creative high point. In 1971, a single episode attracted over 21 million British viewers, an astonishing figure for the era. Hill collected awards, including a BAFTA for writing, and the program earned Emmy nominations in America. A glamorous dance troupe known as Hill's Angels was introduced in the early 1980s, adding youthful energy and eye-catching choreography, though their frequent appearances in revealing outfits would later fuel much of the criticism leveled at the series. By the middle of the decade, however, cracks were beginning to appear. A new generation of alternative comedians, led by figures such as Ben Elton, openly attacked what they saw as the show's sexist portrayal of women. Elton, appearing on television and in magazine interviews, accused the program of normalizing the objectification of women and even suggested it contributed to real-world harassment. Defenders countered that blaming a slapstick comedy show for societal problems was absurd, but the damage was done. Inside Thames Television, executives were also grappling with rising production costs and gently declining ratings. In 1989, after 21 years at the network, they decided not to renew Hill's contract. Cancellation was announced quietly, yet it sent shockwaves through the industry. Hill, then 65, refused to accept that his career was over. He began planning an ambitious new series titled Benny Hill's World Tour, filming a pilot in New York with many of his longtime collaborators. Tragically, ill health intervened. In February 1992, he suffered a mild heart attack and was advised to undergo bypass surgery. He declined. Kidney failure followed soon after. On April 20th, 1992, he died alone in his modest Teddington flat, seated in his armchair in front of the television. Friends discovered his body 2 days later. Ironically, on the very day he passed away, a new contract from another network arrived in the post, an offer he would never see. Despite earning millions during his career, Hill lived frugally. He never bought a house, preferring rented flats, mended his own clothes, and walked rather than take taxis. He never married, too. Proposals were turned down and had no children. When his estate was finally settled, it amounted to the equivalent of nearly £20 million in today's money, divided among nieces and nephews. In the decades since his death, attitudes toward Benny Hill's work have softened considerably. Repeats have returned to British screens, and younger audiences discovering the shows on streaming platforms often find the controversy baffling. The sped-up chases, the impeccable comic timing, the sheer inventiveness of the sketches, all remain as funny as ever to many viewers. Whatever one thinks of the more risqué elements, few dispute that Benny Hill was a comedic genius who brought joy to millions. His influence can still be felt in the fast-cutting, character-driven humor of today's television and online comedy. The little man with the mischievous grin may have left the stage far too soon, but the laughter he created continues to echo around the world.